Very good afternoon to everyone. So as we all know, what we're talking about today is basically the legal framework of structuring investments, and what goes into understanding both for a startup and a relatively mid-sized company when you are trying to raise capital from the legal side, and what you need to be careful of, what you need to understand. The reason I say only startup and mid-sized companies, because by the time you cross the mid-size level, you are aware of all these sort of legal issues that crop up, and you are quite versed with all of this. So my talk is basically divided into three parts. The first part will dwell upon what you need to understand as far as the legal framework of structuring seed investment is concerned. The second part, I will just give you a small example from my experience and what I have learned. Many startups where they fumble and where they falter, ending up losing a lot of control in their company, in the temptation of trying to get a lot of money in the company. And the third part, I will just take you through various sort of contracts, commercial agreements that you will need to know about when you hire people, especially when it's in terms of especially if it's a software company, so there's data privacy issues, employees steal data, so how this can be prevented, etc. So without wasting much time, the first part, like I said, talks of structuring seed investment in an enterprise. Now, let's take this as a cycle of sorts, and let's begin with the entire life cycle of a founder or co-founders. Now, it starts with a brilliant idea where you just out of college and you decide to sort of do something, right? And it's a brilliant idea, you think there's a need and you think it can sort of kick off. Then you go further, three of you decide that yes, this is something that we need to do, and then you take advice here and there. Then someone tells you that yes, if you have to go formally, it is important for you to incorporate an entity, because in the long run, that is what will help you hire people, bring investment, structure your initial founder stock, so on and so forth, and sign various agreements which are required. Now, what is important is the moment you decide. So this is fairly simple. Still here it's simple. Someone's told you to set up an enterprise or set up a company, and so what you do is you either go to a chartered accountant or you go to somebody in the family, because you don't have the money to pay lawyers. So you'll go to somebody who's in this business, and you'll say, I want to start this company. The second question is, how much money are you willing to invest? I don't have much money. What is the bare minimum that you need to do to start this enterprise? Whatever it is, I'll give it to you and please start this company. Fine. Company started. Right here, what happens is, and this is something that people or co-founders realize a couple of months down the line, a year down the line, or 2 years down the line, is that what forms the backbone of a company is the Articles of Association of a company and Memorandum of Association. So memorandum is fairly simple, outlines the objects, but the articles of a company are extremely important and have to be thoughtfully, diligently and very carefully drafted. It has to have provisions for the company to raise money in the future. It has to have provisions for the company to issue various kinds of shares which are allowed, preference shares, equity shares, shares with differential voting rights, debentures, employee stock options, whatever be it. It's the articles of association that will permit you or prevent you from going out and asking for investment. So the first thing you would need to know as a co-founder is that the articles of association have to be extremely and diligently drafted. They cannot be sort of copied from here and a little bit copied from there, put together, you file it and your company is ready, open a bank account and you start business. That's not how it's done. If you want to sort of avoid any legal issues later or hurdles later, so this is the first step. Having taken care of the first step, then moving forward to what is a second step in a co-founder sort of life cycle is that you start doing business now. A couple of months down the line, you start generating some amount of revenue. Immediately now you have customers, you've got some revenue, you've got a bank account going. Now you have the capacity to actually go to investors and ask for money. Again, what needs to be understood by everyone sitting here is that in India, so like I have a lot of people coming to me saying that this is a convertible note and I'm raising X amount of money, or this is this agreement, I'm raising this amount of money, or this is this agreement and I'm raising that amount of money. What you need to know is that in India there are only two kinds of shares that can be issued. One is equity shares and second is preference shares. Apart from equity and preference shares, there is no other category of shares that can be issued by a company as far as an Indian entity is concerned, as far as Indian laws are concerned. So if anyone is telling you that this can be done, or somebody is telling you that can be done, and you're signing this agreement or some other agreement, it's absolutely wrong. These are the only two kinds of shares that can be issued. Within equity shares and preference shares, yes, there can be shares with different voting rights. They can be you can borrow money from shareholders by way of a loan. You can issue debentures, though debenture is a fairly complex procedure, not recommended for startups at all. That comes at a later stage. But yes, you can raise money by way of a loan, again only from shareholders or directors of the company. Then you can issue employee stock options to employees of your company. On the other hand, you can also issue sweat equity shares. Now, sweat equity, as you all already know, is equity issued to somebody for consideration other than cash. So you're giving them shares in the company for their know-how that they're bringing into the company, or intellectual property that they're bringing into the company, whatever be it, but other than cash. However, if you wish to issue sweat equity, they can only be issued to employees. They cannot be issued to the general public, and they can only be issued after 1 year of operation of the company, and they cannot be issued right away. Similarly, employee stock options also can only be issued to employees. So there's got to be a justification for you to issue. So you can't just decide one day that I want to issue ESOPs, or I want to go with the rights issue, sweat equity, and find somebody and decide that you wish to issue all of this. No. There's got to be a justification for what you're issuing to, what you're issuing and to whom. Because after all, ultimately you're issuing shares of the company to individuals, and whether you're issuing them at a premium or at par value, you are responsible to answer whatever it is to tax authorities. So shares, so in order to make it simple for you to understand, shares as of today cannot be issued at a discount. Only if you're issuing ESOPs or if you're issuing sweat equity, they can be issued at a discount, but that too, there's got to be a clear justification for issuance of these instruments. And the moment an employee decides to sort of sell the ESOP that he's been given by the company, there is tax on capital gain. So he's got to pay tax. Whether you're issuing sweat equity, there's tax on that as well. Whether you're issuing shares, even to co-founders or to investors, so everything is taxed. There's a clear capital gain tax on it, and this is obviously calculated based on the purchase price and eventually how much you sell it for. So all these things have to be meticulously sort of worked out before you decide to issue any sort of instrument to anybody. Again, you can't sort of invite investors and ask them to invest in a company simply by saying, I will give you 20% of my company and you give me 20 lakh rupees. It doesn't work like that. How it works is that, and I'm assuming all of you understand the concept of, how shares are structured, what is authorized capital, what is paid up capital, how share price is calculated. Now, the moment you go to an investor and ask him for money, share price of a company needs to be determined upfront before shares can be issued to an investor. Now, if your authorized capital permits you to expand your paid up capital and issue shares at par value and not at a premium, that's fine. But there's again got to be a justification. You can't say, so if today your company is billing say 50 lakh a year, you can't say my shares are still standing at 10 rupees what they were 5 years ago when I incorporated my company. And therefore, please come and I'll give the investor again 10 rupees, I'll give the shares at 10 rupees. It won't work like that, because you are then under, as per tax laws, you're trying to evade tax, because all of this is income for the company. So all of this will need to be meticulously and diligently thought of, pre-planned, and like I said before, all of this will need to be authorized by the articles, which is the backbone of your company. If the articles do not permit you to do all of this, you cannot anyway, you will have to amend the articles and do it, yes, but without amending it, you cannot go forward. So these are a few. If there's any question, please stop me and just ask.
I had a couple of questions.
Yes.
If you were talking about sweat equity,
Yes.
so let's say if you've got a startup and you've got a friend and you want, okay, you come and do this piece of work for me and I'll give you so many shares. So you're saying I cannot do that if I'm not a 1-year-old company?
A 1-year-old company, no. So for sweat equity, the concept of sweat equity is that basically sweat equity is the only equity that is permitted by law to be issued at a discount. Regular shares cannot be issued at a discount, right? So if you're issuing sweat equity to somebody, you've got to be a 1-year-old company in order to issue those shares at a discount. Again, if you're issuing them at a discount, there's got to be a justification for the issue price that you've calculated at the point of issue.
But can I give regular shares to someone for coming and doing a piece of work with me even if they're not an employee?
You can give them regular shares, but those shares have to come into the company. So you've got to show a transaction. You can't just.
They have to buy these shares or whatever.
So you can, yeah. So yes. So now what happens is, earlier in the phase of a company, you decide and distribute shares, the easier it is for you, because you're just a startup and your company you're pretty much nil. 10 rupees a share. Fine, it doesn't pinch anybody to buy a share for 10 rupees, which you need to just show as a transaction. There is no tax on it, right? So, but eventually, the moment you start distributing equity, you've got to justify the price, price of each share that you calculate at the time of distribution, and based upon that, your liability, etc., will be calculated. Yes.
You have to justify this figure of the share price or something. that justifications come from the VR board resolution something, or is it decided only by directors or what?
No, justification needs to come. You will have to calculate. There are various methods of calculating per share price. That will all depend on the assets that the company owns, revenue that it is generating, future projections of revenue. So all of this will determine the value of the company or the worth of the company. Once you are able to identify or determine the worth of the company, that is then divided into per share price of the company and the price at which each share will be issued. So all of that will determine your share price. So what I'm trying to say is that you cannot have 30 lakh of revenue today and then suddenly wake up, I like this guy, and so at 30 lakh of revenue anyway, your share price is hypothetically say 100 rupees, right? You can't suddenly just wake up and say, I'll give it to you at 10 rupees. Here you go. No, you can't, because the 90 rupees is actually you're foregoing tax on it, and therefore you are liable to answer to those tax authorities as to where has the 90 rupees gone, because on paper your share is worth 100 rupees, so you can't issue it at 10 rupees and evade tax on it, right? And this is all income for the company, is what I'm saying. Yes.
Initially, for example, when my startup, we have what we have done is we have started with 1 lakh paid the authorized capital, and that's the same as the paid up capital right now. So if you want to bring in more money because we are now making expenses or something like that. So how the process is there? Because I just want to understand the process, because as I understand it, the more authorized capital, as you increase it, you have to give some percentage to the ROC.
Yeah, that's true. That's fees. Yeah, so that fees you've got to give. So it is. So that's filing fee that goes to the government. It is 2,000 rupees till 10 lakh, your authorized capital. 2,000 rupees till 10 lakh. Then till 50 lakh, it's 100 rupees for every 10,000. So your maths is better than mine. You can calculate. From 10 lakh to 50 lakh, at every 10,000 is 100 rupees, right? You add to it. From I think 50 to a crore, it's another 75, 100. Yeah, but you've got to keep. So that's filing fees. That filing fees is in place, or is basically imposed on companies, is because the government doesn't want a situation where just randomly at will you have 50 crore of authorized capital where your company is pretty much billing nothing, right? So that's why that check is there to prevent that from happening.
But just to add to that question, so let's say, like in his example, if the authorized and paid up capital is 1 lakh, and then the investment required to do whatever he's doing is 10 lakhs, how would you advise the rest of the 9 lakhs is structured? Is that should we be a loan to the company? Should we increase your authorized capital and paid up capital to 10 lakhs?
So from 2013 onwards, the legislation has changed, and loan coming into a company has become extremely complicated, strict and very stringent, and they have put these safeguards in place in order to prevent the interest of lenders, so there is no fraud, etc. Unless you're a director of the company, then loan to the company is easier, but as a shareholder, there's a whole procedure to be followed. So if you were to ask me this question, I would say if you're fine issuing equity, if you're for the 9 lakh rupees, I think that's the easiest way to go. But giving away equity also means you're giving a part of the company. That's one. Number two, your 1 lakh question and how do you structure that? That you have to then amend the articles, increase your authorized capital to make room for the 9 lakh that's coming into the company. So those amendments will have to be made in the document, and then, but the choice is yours. Again, loan. So if you it's cumbersome but possible. Equity, it's easier, but then you're giving away a part of the company.
No, but as a director, and where the assumption is that you're looking for future investments to come in, would you advise in that example for that extra 9 lakhs to be a loan to the company or increase authorized capital by?
So is this loan coming
from the director itself?
No, the money is basically, so the co-founders want to infuse more capital, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So for example, let's say I've got a company, I've got 1 lakh paid up, there me and my partner. Now we know that we need 10 lakhs to get it going to a particular state before we can get further investment into the company.
Yes.
So that extra 9 lakh that we need to put into
Yes.
it, how would you advise on structures that extra?
So it's your company,
It's our company.
your company, right? You are just putting in your own money from your pocket to in whatever capital requirements to meet the capital requirement. Then I would say just increase. Don't get into complication of giving a loan and all of that. Increase the authorized capital, issue shares to yourself because it's your company, you're putting the money, the control remains with you, shares are issued to you as an individual. That's the best way going forward. Because loan, then shares are not issued to you, right? Tomorrow, so we suppose you're showing that as a loan, say 15 days down the line, an investor shows interest in you. Then what do? You'll issue the investor equity shares. You are at a disadvantage because this money is loan to the company. You are not a
Should be like that.
exactly. So you're doing it at your own disadvantage.
But
So loan only works well if you are taking money from investors and you don't want to give them equity. Absolutely. Then it works well for co-founders. Otherwise, if you're a co-founder, issue shares to yourself, you have to control the company, and then you're free to go out and ask for capital, right? You don't have to.
But there's no problem with being a director as well as a shareholder. Right?
No, so if you're a director, there are certain declarations. Because what happens is if you're a director, along with being a director, there is also liability issues of the company. Tomorrow, if there's any fraud, the directors are the persons who are sort of held liable for it, right? Similarly, therefore, taking loan from a director is easier. So the law says if you're a director, you're willing to take responsibility for fraud, nothing will go wrong, fine, sign these declarations, give the loan, no problem. If anything, we know we can catch you as per what the law says in India. So it's easier. As a shareholder, shareholder can be 1% shareholder, can be 100% shareholder. So for a shareholder, it is cumbersome and a procedure needs to be followed in order to. So there's filings with the ROC, you have to have credit rating, there's got to be an insurance cover. So it's a little tedious.
And just one last thing, one last piece on this. As we are doing a daily, on a day-to-day, some transactions are doing, we are giving something to designers or something like that. And right now I know that, okay, that I have 1 lakh only authorized capital. Now for 1 year, I know that I don't have to file my balance sheet and audit is not going to happen. So it's going to happen on next year March. So till that point, I keep on giving loan as a director to my company, and before that, I just increase my authorized capital. Would that be a better way? Because right now I'm not sure whether that will reach 10 lakh in 1 year, or it might reach only 5 lakhs a year.
So you're saying right now you just show it as a loan and then decide. No, why do you want to get? Like I said, if it is your company and it's your own money, then to save your own interest, I think the best way is to go the equity route, not get into any other complication. If it is your own money, if it is third-party money and you need to, balance it out, you need the money at the same time you want to keep control, then these are various options to work around sort of receiving money. But if it is your own money, I would suggest, increase your authorized capital. It will cost you 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 at the most. But that authorized capital, even if it is not exhausted immediately, it's there. It's not going anywhere, right? So exhaust as much as you want to. The company is entirely yours. And it's there, it's not going anywhere. You can use it later when third-party investor wants to come in. So don't get into, what I'm saying is don't get into a complication where you take part equity. You're doing it at your own disadvantage. Right? That's what I'm trying to say. So moving forward, I think I pretty much, So these are basically instruments that can be issued, like I said, equity shares, preference shares. Equity obviously comes with voting rights and the control is the equity shareholders. Preference shares on the other hand don't come with voting rights. There is no control preference shareholders have, but it's considered preferred stock. So, as far as dividends, etc. is concerned, they are preference shareholders are given preference as far as dividend payments, etc. Or tomorrow the company shuts shop. They are the ones who are paid their money before equity shareholders. That's why it's called preference shares. Then there is, yes, you can take loan, you can issue debentures, you can issue ESOPs, you can issue sweat equity.
ESOPs also can be issued within a year, or that's also?
ESOPs can be issued, no. ESOPs you can issue, yes. Sweat equity you can issue only after a year. But again, ESOPs can only be issued to employees. And while you are issuing ESOPs, there's got to be a clean sort of something on paper or something that shows that you're actually issuing it to employees. So, like I said, it's ESOP, right? And ESOPs, and again for ESOPs, there's a document that comes in place. You give it to them right now. So shares aren't given right away. They're sort of vested over a number of years, depending on whatever targets are to be met. That choice is yours, right? How you want to structure an ESOP plan. That flexibility is yours. But ESOPs again.
So my question was, so let's say I'm hiring someone and he's on a salary of let's say 2 lakhs a month, for argument's sake. And I say, okay, I'll give you 50,000 in cash and or whatever. So salary of 50,000 and the rest I'll give you as shares. Can I do that?
50,000 salary.
And I'm like 1.5 lakhs in share that at par.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as so you're issuing it, so you'll give it to them at par, or you give it to
Okay,
them.
no, I'll have to give it to him at a premium, so he'll take away the whole equity of the companies.
Yeah.
So I'll have to do a premium on that.
No, why will you have to do a premium on that?
No, because I guess if I've got to pay up capital of only a lakh or 5 lakhs.
Yeah. So that
I'll
way,
pay 1.5 lakhs.
correct. So that you'll have to figure out. But you're permitted to do what you just said you're permitted to do. You can cut the salary and give him shares, yes. That's permitted, absolutely. As long as he's an employee. He can be earning 15,000 rupees, he can be earning 2 lakh rupees, that's fine. As long as he's an employee, you are well within your rights to issue ESOPs.
And from a valuation perspective, like you were saying, the valuation of the shares, so you have to have an independent valuator to do it?
Yes,
or you have
yes.
to have an
Independent value, yes. You need somebody, so usually CAs do it. Otherwise, so a CS service is considered authentic as far as tax laws are concerned, because if the CA is willing to stamp a document saying that this company's share is valued at this much, because he's the one who is aware of the balance sheet, he's the one who's aware of your profit and loss account, he's the one who's aware of your assets and liabilities, he's the one who's aware of your revenues, he's the one who is aware of your expenses, and considering everything, he's saying your company is valued at this much. That's fine. That is considered legally valid from a tax point of view. Because tomorrow, should there be a bluff here, it's the CA's responsibility. It's his liability. So usually CAs don't. So they're very careful in stamping any share sort of value.
But how does this? Sorry, this is a theoretical question. But how does this work in practicality? Because you hear of so many startups where in 1 month, whatever, I put 20 lakhs into it and I get only 20% of the company for argument's sake. So on what basis can you then, from what you're just saying, value a company with no revenue at a crore for argument's sake?
So how can you value? So again, that's notional value, and again, it has so there's a difference between the two, right? If the investor is willing to come in and say that your 10 rupee share, I think this is a brilliant idea, I think it can really do very well and all of that, right? You sold a real nice dream to him. And if the investor is willing to come and say that, yes, I can buy this share at 100 rupees, right? If he's willing to do it, so doing it at a premium, it's fine. Tax authorities are saying that's fine because you're liable for tax, right? So the investor is saying, I'm willing to give you 100 rupees per share despite no revenue, nothing in it, right? I'm fine, I'll give it to you. Tax authorities are more than welcome, that's fine.
Because the company has to pay capital gains tax on that.
Exactly, capital gains tax. So there are two ways of going about it. That's all. So either the company pays capital gain on that, or you increase your authorized capital to a limit where you are in a position to issue it at even 10 rupees. But then you're not. But then the value of the company again is not what the investor has sort of capped you on, right? Yeah. So again, premium is fine, but again for a premium is fine, but discount is a question. Yes. So even CA, if the CA says that I think considering everything it's at 50 rupees as per I'm willing to stamp it for 50 rupees. But the investor says, that's fine, I can give you a premium for another 50, I'll buy it for 100. More than happy, why not? So the remaining 50, or no, from 10 to 100, if you are willing to pay tax, that's fine, but nothing wrong. But below 50, that's an issue.